Rhythm and Soul Radio. I am Marco Nobles. We are in the virtual studio. For those of you who listen to us regularly, Rhythm and Soul Radio is urban eclectic radio. We, as many of you know, play everything from rock to hip hop and everything in between with an urban sensibility. And I introduced this interview this way because we are joined in our virtual studio by the Flying Raye, who is an Americana artist. He is a country artist, folk artist, singer, songwriter. So some people might say, well, why, you know, are you interviewing an Americana artist? Because we are Urban Eclectic Radio. Uh,
Yeah.
so the Flying Raye is joined by producer Graham Wilkinson in the virtual studio, and you know. The two of them have worked together on the Flying Raye's debut full LP, which is Never Too Old to Die Young.
Sir.
So um, let's start there. Talk about that because it's a very important, once it's important title, and the album has a significance, serious significance for you.
Yeah, it does. So the song I wrote a while back, and it took on more significance over time. But when I first wrote it, I was kind of inspired by my grandfather, Daniel Raye, who lived to be almost 91 years old, and man, he was
Mm,
thriving up until the end. At his 89th birthday, like as an example,
mm,
his 89th birthday, my dad, we eat a lot of crawfish down here in the South during the
mm,
season. My dad was having a crawfish boil, and he had a keg of Keystone Light beer that my granddad liked to drink, and he was having a lot of family and friends over. And my granddad he lived in a retirement community down the way, and these girls from a local school would come over. Their sorority would come over, and they'd, play dominoes and play cards with all the old men there. And my grandfather got to be pretty good friends with them.
mm,
And as he was getting ready to leave to come to my dad's house for his party, he asked these two really good-looking 21-year-old girls. He says, "Hey, my son's throwing me a birthday party. We're going to eat some crawfish and drink some beer if y'all'd like to come." And they did. And so my granddad walks in to the party, and kind of shocked everybody. He had these two beautiful 21-year-old girls, one under each arm, and kind of introduced them jokingly as his girlfriends. And so kind of in that vein, I started, and he passed a couple years later. But I started thinking along the lines of, despite the fact that he was really old, he was living young. And when he died, it hurt. We didn't look at it like, oh, this old man died. We looked at it as, man, this guy who was still kicking butt and loving life passed away. And then the line came into my head, never too old to die young. And of course, the first thing I thought about was my grandfather. And so I wrote the song, and it kind of sat on the shelf for a while until we got ready to record this album.
right. And certainly for you personally, you went through some health challenges, as many of us do as we go through this life. We certainly want to continue living young, but as we get of certain age, I say with friends of mine, we get to be at an age where things start happening.
Uh-huh. Oh
Um,
yeah. Yeah.
and you had some of that you went through as well.
Yeah, well, you know what? And I'll get to that here in just a second. Like this last week, I was down in Mexico for a music festival, and my
Hmm.
feet hurt. Nobody told me that when you get to be 40 something years old, your feet will just start hurting. I'd get out of bed. I'm like, what is going on down there?
Right, exactly.
Dogs are barking. But yeah, man. So what's today? April is today the 13th, 14th?
Today is the 12th.
The 12th. Okay, so 1 year ago tomorrow, I was released from the hospital. So
Mm.
April 6th of last year, it was a Thursday. I was watching San Antonio Spurs game with a buddy of mine, had a couple beers. Long story short, couldn't get rid of the beers. And I'm like, I'm a guy, so I'm like, well, I guess I'll just never go to the bathroom again. And
Mhm.
my wife was like, no, that's not normal. We should probably go to the doctor. So we go to the ER. Thursday night turns into Friday morning, and they said, "Hey, man, you have a tumor on your right kidney. You have cancer. It's the size of a football, and it's got to come out immediately." So they
Mm.
send me from one hospital to another. I get there, they do a number of scans, and they confirmed that it had not metastasized, which was a good deal. It was confined to that kidney, and so I had a show that night, local show in Austin, out on Lake Travis, at a place called the Oasis Texas Brewing. So I asked the surgeon. I said, "Well, man, if this isn't emergent, it doesn't need to come out right away. Can I go play this show and then come back?" And he said, "Yeah, that actually works out better because we like to have a full surgical team before we start removing vital organs." So he said, "But enjoy it because it's the last fun weekend you're going to have for a while." So I called
Mm.
Graham, and it was probably a really unexpected call for him because I was like, "Hey, man, what are you doing this evening?" He's like, "Yeah, I was maybe going to come to your show." I said, "Would you mind playing with me? I just found out I had cancer, and I got to come back on Monday and get my kidney out." I was like, "But I still want to play this show because I'm going to sit at home and be miserable, or I'm going to go play some music and make some money and be less miserable." So
Right.
that's what we opted to do. So we went and played the show, went back Monday, had the kidney out, and have been fine ever since. I'm fortunate to live near Houston, where MD Anderson Hospital is located, and I think that their reputation is one that's they're one of the best cancer hospitals in the world. So I've been going there every few months for scans and checkups, blood work, you name it, and I'm all good, no issues. And so back making music again, and nobody talks about like the upsides of getting sick. So like when it came time to make this album, I call all these local musicians like, "Hey, I'm going to the studio. I'd love it if you could come play." And they're like, "Well, can't really say no to this guy. He just got over cancer." Yeah. So I got a little people that are normally above my pay grade to come in and play on this one. So hopefully it's reflected in the album.
Absolutely, and the album again is "Never Too Old to Die Young." Uh,
Yeah.
the Flying Raye is your debut album, but you've released an EP prior, I think, back in
Yeah.
2020, right?
So I did, yeah, around 2020, 2021. So Patrick, my engineer that I mentioned earlier, who showed his face for a moment, it was mostly he and I, and then a buddy of ours, a lead guitar player, came in and played on some tracks, Matt Gracie, and that one was more of just kind of like a hobby. My work had really, really slowed down as a result of COVID, as a lot of people's
Hmm.
did. So
Hmm.
I started writing songs, and it was just something fun to do. And I sent a couple to Graham, and Graham was like, "Hey, man, I think you might have something here." So I wrote a few more, and then Graham and my wife conspired behind my back to buy me some studio time as a Christmas gift. And then so we just kind of bootstrapped it and put it out there, and the reception was pretty good. And then people started saying, "Hey, if you'll come play these here, I'll give you some money." And I thought, well, that's not a bad deal. Uh, so yeah, we did that, and then a couple years later, Graham and everybody like, "What?" They knew I had sufficient songs for another album. They're like, "Let's get in there and do it." And then one thing I realized after getting sick is there's not a whole lot of time to be wasted. You kind of just got to get going and make things
Yes.
happen. So, but yeah, so it's relatively new in terms of being somebody who gives me money to listen to my music. Uh, but better late than never.
Right. Hey, Graham, you've been obviously working with this guy for a long time, but it sounds like you guys have been friends even before the music thing.
Actually, yeah, we our first encounter was uh, over a decade ago.
It's around 2005,
Yeah,
2006.
yeah. Dang, quite a long time ago when he was running sound up in Dallas and my band was playing a show. And then moved down to Austin, or was that in Austin when you?
It was in Austin,
Yeah,
on 6th Street.
but you might have seen me up at the Green Elephant
Yep.
playing. Yeah, so we had met each other in passing, and then my twin daughters were starting kindergarten, and his son was starting kindergarten
Mm.
9 years ago. And at the
Kindergarten roundup.
meet the teacher for the kindergartners, I had dreads down to my knees, and I was walking through the aisle. We were a few minutes late, and we walked right by him, and he was like, "Hey, bro," and I was like, "Hey, man," and then we just started chatting, and turns out he lives right down the street from me,
Less than a
and
mile.
yeah, and our circles all became connected, and we've just been buddies and hang out a lot, go to shows, play the guitar a lot in his backyard, and when did you start writing songs?
The end of 2020.
Yeah, it was. We'd sit around and sing our favorite, Willie Nelson songs, Towns Van Zandt, whatever.
Mm.
But I've been recording music since 2006 and been on the road all over the country. Played New York tons of times. I was just in
Okay.
Rockwood Music Hall in October, I believe. But
Oh, great. Okay.
but I just love his songs. I love the guy so much. And Patrick, the drummer, is also the engineer. We're in his studio right now, Signal Hill Recording here in Austin. And all three of us just kind of started brainstorming on it, and we made it happen. This how many days? We did 3 days in the studio, 4?
4. Yeah, we did 4 songs. We did 4 days, 3.5, cut 10 songs.
Yeah, it was super fun. All-star cast of musicians, mainly my band and this other guy. but yeah, Patrick Hertzfeld on drums and engineering and helping me produce, and then Morgan Thompson on bass and Matt Gracie on lead guitar, and Nicholas
Hamburg.
Homburg is on the pedal steel.
Okay. All right. Now, Graham, you're originally from Austin. Is that right?
Well, I'm from Texas. We're both from Texas. We both kind of grew up in East Texas, Northeast
Oh,
Texas. But
okay.
yeah,
I
I've
guess
been here about 20 years. 20 years.
okay.
Well,
So, and Dustin, the Flying Ray, you
yes, sir.
you're originally from Dallas, but you settled in Austin.
Yeah,
I guess
I
15, 20
did.
years ago as well.
I did. I grew up in Dallas, went to school in West Texas, moved to Austin in 2000, and then
Mhm.
moved back to South Dallas for about 3 years from '06 to '09, and then came back here. And I was, when I was in Dallas, I was spending half my vacation days just coming back to Austin anyway. So I thought there's got to be a more efficient way to do this.
Right.
So yeah, moved back here. And Austin, has seen it grow up, seen it change. Austin and I both gotten a lot larger since I first moved here. Yeah,
Yeah, and I think it's interesting, and our listeners will appreciate it because apparently you bartended on Sixth Street for a
I
while
did.
as well.
Yeah, for
Um,
years.
it, so, and our audience will appreciate it because, as everyone knows, we were broadcasting from South by Southwest over this year and the last 4 or 5 that it's happened.
Yeah.
Obviously excluding the pandemic. And so we spend a lot of time on Sixth Street. So I think it's fascinating to now meet somebody who's like ingrained in that and
Oh yeah.
bartending in that, and the fact that it's such a music city, and now being able to come out of that as a musician and I'm going to say preparing to tour the country and the world. I'm just going to put that
Yeah.
out there because that's how these things happen.
Yeah. It was moving from, of course, when I was living in Dallas growing up, I was too young to really do too much. Then I moved to West Texas and, kind of isolated. It was kind of an eye-opening experience to go spend a few nights a week down on Sixth Street behind a bar and see all the silliness that that went on down there and still goes on, to this day. So I met a lot of really interesting characters. The title of the album is Never Too Old to Die Young, but we did release a single a few months ago called The Ballad of Leslie Cochran, and it's about a guy I used to spend a good bit of time down there with. It was a guy named Leslie Cochran. He was a homeless guy, and I think he was kind of homeless by choice, but he was also a big homeless advocate. Ran for mayor a few times, got second place one year, but he dressed up as a woman. Now he wasn't trying to come off as a woman. He was just trying to come up with as a really hairy dude that dressed as a woman. It was just almost like a character for him.
Mm.
But he was, Austin's motto is keep Austin weird, and this guy took it as like he carried that weight. He's like, I'm gonna keep it weird myself, even if nobody else will. So he was like a landmark, like a local treasure, almost like a human tourist attraction. So when I'd bartend down there, I figured out real quick that if I let him in, I'd give him a couple beers. A lot of other people would come in because they wanted to get their pictures made with him and chat with him for a little while. So, I'd see him 2 or 3 days a week, throw him a couple beers, and we'd sit down and chat. And I got to know him pretty well. And
Mm.
in this town full of songwriters, it struck me a couple years ago that nobody had really written a song about him, or at least that I could find. And so I, sat down and thought, this might be some low hanging fruit. Let's see what we can do. So
Right.
yeah,
And it's very interesting because, obviously having been down there, 5 times now, you see the slogan and you hear the slogan, keep Austin weird,
yeah,
and to hear the history and be able to now folks will be able to hear this a little bit of this history in song. I think it's fascinating, and I agree. It's interesting that nobody's ever written a song about him.
yeah. It was, we made a video relatively recently. We went back through a lot of old, footage of him, and it was fun just seeing this old footage of Leslie. We got to see Austin, what it looked like 20 years ago,
Mm.
25 years ago. So it's fun. It always gets a good reception when we play it at shows because it's serious and funny at the same time because he was I'd say 20% serious, 80% funny dude. So we tried
Mhm.
to make it, make the song reflect that.
Right, right, absolutely. It's Rhythm and Soul Radio. We are talking with the Flying Raye, who's joined by Graham Wilkinson as well. We are talking about the new album, Never Too Old to Die Young. The single, which is out currently, the album comes out May 31st. The
Correct.
single itself is the Ballad of Leslie Corcoran, is what we're talking about now. Um, as you talk about seeing Austin grow up, and this is happening in many cities. You see the growth of cities, but you also see, for the lack of a better term, the word gentrification and
Oh
and,
yeah.
and the growth and that sort of thing. And one of the things I noticed being in Austin, and I'm sure, because people think gentrification is about, well, people put it in a classification of being about race, but it's really about class and money.
Yep.
So it's really, and I say that because as artists who are in Austin, and Austin is full of artists,
Yep.
when communities are pushed out of where they live, a lot of times it's the artist community as well, whether they're Black, Native American, Latino, whoever they are,
Yep.
they're being moved out. So someone who's kind of been there, like on Sixth Street, which is the main strip of Austin. I wonder in terms of what you've seen, how that's gone. I mean, for those who are not aware, there's a section right off of Sixth Street, Rainy Street, which is seems to be going through that
Oh
as
yeah.
we speak,
Oh
in
yeah.
terms of all the development that's going on from the first time I went in 2018 to now. At least half of the bars and places I remember on Rainy Street are not there anymore.
Yep. Yeah, a lot of high rises have gone up over there. And yeah, man, it's I feel like Austin more so than some cities has done somewhat of a decent job trying to balance growing and developing with trying to maintain some of its original character. But no doubt, like I'm not gonna call them out by name, but I know a number of musicians, and so does Graham, and so does Patrick, that are insanely talented and are professional musicians who that's all they've done their entire career, who've had to leave the city and move other places like Memphis or wherever, so they could continue their career because they got priced out here.
Hmm.
um, in a town full of musicians, I think also, the pay sometimes is less. People want to pay you less because they're like, well, I'll just go to this other guy. But yeah, it's been tough to manage because, the prices go up, but what people want to pay you for sharing your art doesn't necessarily go up consistent with that. You know, so I think, you know, we've maintained, I don't know, just in the last number of years, some of my favorite music venues have shut down. Threadgill's, Austin
Mm.
Music Hall, and that was even before I got here. Others were telling me, one of the things that everybody says about Austin is, oh man, you should have been here yesterday. Uh, yeah, if you think it's cool now, you should have been here yesterday. And I feel like it's been that ever since I moved here.
Mm.
So yeah, a lot of my favorite places are gone, and I don't particularly care for the places have gone up in their where they were.
Well,
Mm.
and I just want to add in that despite its growth and all of the examples, especially on the east side of gentrification in real time happening, there are some amazing nonprofits in town and some local groups that are trying to preserve the culture, the Latino culture, and the BIPOC culture in the East Side. And like, there's some historic venues over there that have somehow stayed open through all of this because of these organizations, like the
Hmm.
Victory Grill and
Yes.
some of the ones
Kenny
Kenny Dormer's
Dormer's backyard. Yes.
backyard. Yeah, man. I mean, I've
We were there. We did one of our events there for the last 2 years
That's
during
awesome.
South by.
it's so
Big
great.
shout out to Harold McMillan.
Yeah, hey Harold, man, he's one of the best, dude. He's one of the best. He's one of those um, iconic individuals who's been in Austin for so long, who has seen the change in real time, and instead of just complaining about it, actively uh, tries to preserve what's left instead of fighting it. You're not going to be able to fight it, but like and even what is now, it's the Sahara Lounge, used to be
Hmm.
TC's, and that all these venues were on the Chitlin circuit back in the 50s and 60s. And so,
Right.
like, the history there, so many people don't know, but just raising awareness about it, and then having a concert that's a fundraiser to try to keep this open. I mean, my buddy Shaka with his organization Dawa has done plenty of events at Kenny Dorman's backyard to try and maintain these pieces of Austin, which, just like Leslie, like we were talking about that guy, like these are instances and places and people that make Austin Austin, which everybody wants to say makes it weird, but when they're disappearing before our eyes, it's like, well, what do we do? And I mean, I feel like, I mean, as a songwriter, you write a song and you
Right.
tell the story, sing the song. You know what I'm saying?
I have one song like that we were just talking about on the way here. I've never formally recorded. I've just cut some demos of it, but called "Meet Me Under a Moon Tower," and that's what it is. It's just kind of reminiscing about, things that how they used to be, and people that were here, and people that are gone, and how it's you kind of take it with a grain of salt. You miss those places, but you kind of gotta embrace what you still have, and hope that it doesn't go away for as quickly as some of the others.
Yes, absolutely. You mentioned the songs. You mentioned the songs you have written. "Meet Me Under a Moon Tower." Of course, the Ballad of Leslie Corcoran. There are a lot of tracks on this album that have unique and very different names,
Yeah.
which I find really interesting. And it seems like maybe that's in deference to maybe your grandfather who had a certain zest for life. But you have, of course, the album has its own flavor, "Never Too Old to Die Young," but you
Yep.
have put a little ketchup on it. Freddie had a great big deck.
Yeah, make sure DECK.
DECK, right,
Yep,
right.
that's
You know,
about one of our old. Graham used to play there all the time when we were younger. But yeah,
When we were younger.
it was a local guy, Freddie, who owned a bar down on South First Street, and it was kind of just big outdoor patio, a lot of big oak trees, a stage. It was kind of a little hippie hangout, and of course he had a big wooden deck outside where everybody would congregate, and all the wait staff had shirts, and on the back of it said Freddie has a great big deck, and
right.
so
No one had written that song.
yeah,
And so like every couple of weeks, Dustin will send me a song. He's like, "Hey man, wrote this," or "I'm working on this," or "I've got a verse." And uh, I don't think that I'm a fountain of wisdom with advice to give on these things, but it's like, hey, that sounds good, or that's funny. I can't believe no one's written that yet. And I played Freddie's every Thursday for 4 years.
Wow.
Every Thursday, 6 to 9, and like kids and dogs, everybody drinking Lone Star margaritas. It was a fantastic time. And when he said that, I was like, "Oh man, you used to go to Freddie's?" And he's like, "Oh, all the time." And then we started talking about different waiters and bartenders there that we knew that
Yeah.
we didn't necessarily know each other at the time, but it's that kind of commonality, which I
Mhm.
think is desired so much by individuals everywhere. But like there's still, in my opinion, that small town feel with Austin, despite the growth. And we were talking about uh, the growth and the gentrification and things like that. But another thing about Austin, even though there are artists and creatives that are getting pushed out because of the cost of living, Austin is also unique that it has organizations like the Health Alliance for Austin Musicians, which gives
Mhm. Mhm.
healthcare,
Mhm.
affordable healthcare to musicians, SIMS, which deals with mental health. Uh, that they are unique to Austin,
Yes.
like, and it's unlike anything else. You travel around the country, you go to Nashville, you get up to New York, Chicago, LA. There aren't these kinds of organizations and networks to support the artists and the creatives. So that's one of the reasons why this is home.
So maybe any of your listeners in other cities, listen, get motivated, do some of these cool, deals that help out struggling
We would
artists.
hope so. We would hope
Yeah.
so. You know what? I haven't asked yet, and they say what's in the name. So tell everybody about the Flying Ray and that name and
Yeah.
why that name. Explain that.
Man, so when I was younger, again, probably drew a lot of influence from my grandfather who just liked to make people laugh and smile, liked to tell stories. When I would introduce myself to people, that I didn't know, which I guess you don't really introduce yourself to people you do know, but I would go up and I'd introduce myself and I'd go, I'm Dustin, and I'd kind of give them this look like, you don't know me, and they kind of looking back at me. I was like, I'm Dustin Raye, and they're like, what? And I'm like, of the Flying Rays. They're like, what are you talking about? I'm like, I guess you don't go to many circuses or anything, and it's kind of an icebreaker. And then so years later, when I was, when I was coming out with an album, I realized I needed a name. And I have, a business separate that I've run for years. Um, and I didn't necessarily want some of those people that I was doing business with to be able to look me up and hear some of my lyrics because they may not necessarily be business friendly, in outside of the music business. So I was like, I need an alter ego. So of course, the Flying Raye was what I went with, and Graham was like, "No, man, you gave yourself a name and everything." He's like, "You're ready to roll." And so yeah, now it's too late to go back now. So,
I love it.
but we're getting ready to do on June 7th here in Austin at the Continental Club down
Okay.
South Congress. We're going to
Yes.
do an album release, and I'm going to go on at 10. Graham's band's going to be back, me and Graham, and then we're going to go on at midnight. And I was just talking to Patrick. I'm like, man, should I wear like a pilot's uniform or something? While I'm up there, because when I play a lot of solo shows or when it's Graham and I playing, I'll play guitar. And of course, sing. But in this band, in this iteration, I'm mostly just singing. So I feel like I need like some other shtick, because I'm going to be dancing. I gotta learn how to dance. You ever see that movie Talladega Nights when Ricky Bobby's being
Right.
interviewed and he's like, I
Yeah.
don't know what to do with my hands, man. When I'm up
well,
there singing, I do a lot of that. So I'm like, maybe if I wear a pilot's uniform, I'll just look cooler while I do this.
or maybe it's a circus outfit because
Yeah.
it's the Flying Rays
Hey,
and
oh,
circus.
that's a good idea. I wear like a trapeze outfit,
Yeah,
some
yeah.
tights with some
Hey,
rhinestones.
that
Yeah,
that that looks like that'll work.
yeah,
Let's remind people how they can find you on social media and all that stuff, so they can keep up with you and know about
yeah.
the any shows that are coming up.
So, like I said, I'm old enough to where my feet hurt all the time now, so I'm not real good at the social media stuff. But the main one where I post, uh, uh, when I come up with new songs or just messing around, and Graham and I post a lot of stuff on there, is it's Instagram.com/the Flying Raye,
Okay.
all one word. I was told I have a YouTube channel, so maybe if you do you get a Google search YouTube, the Flying Raye, it'll be on there. But there's really I don't know of any other Flying Rays out there. So pretty much
Yeah,
if you Google me, you'll find me.
yeah, it should be
So
easy to find the Flying
yeah,
Ray.
yeah,
Raye. So
yes
there
sir,
you go. This is the part of the interview where I do the thank yous and we're gonna play the single and all that. But
yeah,
Graham's sitting there with a guitar, and
oh yeah,
you're sitting there. You're in a studio,
yeah,
so I figure you guys can play.
sure man,
I don't know if you want to play the Ballad of Leslie Corcoran, which is the single, or if you want to play something else from the album. Once again, the album comes out May 31st. Never Too
um,
Old to Die Young. The single is the Ballad of Leslie Corcoran, and the Flying Ray and Graham Wilkinson are there and going to play something, whether it's the
well.
ballad or something else.
You know what? I guess maybe we'll do "Never Too Old to Die Young" because the Ballad of Leslie Cochran's released. It's on Spotify and Napster, if that's still a thing. I don't know,
Okay.
but it's still out there. So maybe we'll do one that's not out there yet. That'll be out there
Okay.
May thirty
We'll,
first. So,
we'll, we'll take an
uh,
exclusive. We like it.
yeah, but this is So "Never Too Old to Die Young." This one goes out to my granddaddy Ray. I used to play these songs. I'd say it goes like this, but that's when I was covering songs. But now that it's my own song, it's like it doesn't go like this. It's just it, man. So.
Right.
Well, on the day my granddaddy turned 85, I never seen him more alive. He had a 21-year-old girl on each of his arms. He ate 5 pounds of crawfish, blew out his candles, didn't dance simple what he wished, but I could tell by the smile on his face he didn't think too hard. You ain't never too old to die young. You ain't never too far gone to have a little fun. There ain't nothing in this world that can keep you down and take 6 feet underground. 'Cause you ain't never too old to die young. If you got a why, you can't survive anyhow. 'Cause where love exists, happiness is bound. Your pursuit of joy, man, it ain't never gotta end. So tell your funniest joke, sing your favorite song, have a drink, take a rip from the bong, and throw your arms around the neck of your very best friend. 'Cause you ain't never too old to die young. You ain't never too far to go to have a little fun. There ain't nothing in this world that can keep you down. You take 6 feet underground. You ain't never too old to die young. Well, between stimulus and response, there is a space. Your power lies in your choice. Circumstances don't make a man. Your purpose is who you are. So step outside what is easy and don't be afraid to try something hard. 'Cause if you just sit around waiting for the sun to shine, my friend, you're gonna end up living your life in the dark. And you ain't never too old to die young. You ain't never too far to go, have a little fun. There ain't nothing in this world that can keep you down and take 6 feet underground. You ain't never too old to die young. There ain't nothing in this world that can keep you down, take 6 feet underground. 'Cause you know that you ain't never too old to die young. Yeah, you ain't never too old to die young. Oh, nailed it.
Nice,
Endings are always a little
nice.
tricky.
It's been a long time since we've had a live performance during an interview, and we appreciate you
Well, I'm
guys,
glad we got to
man.
do it, man. I love
Yeah,
it. This is what it's
lots
all
of
about.
fun. It's
Yeah.
lots of fun. The album "Never Too Old to Die Young." You just heard the title track, "The Flying Raye." Available beginning May 31st. The single, "The Ballad of Leslie Corcoran," is available now.
Yep.
Anywhere you can get your digital music. Please support. We always say support independent music, support independent artists across the board. You know, uh, Flying Raye, Graham Wilkinson, thank you very much. Appreciate
Yeah.
you guys,
Thanks for
man.
having us, Marco. Come on down for the album release party. I'll put you up at my place. You can sit
Oh,
down.
hey,
Yeah.
what's the date again? I might have to make it down there.
June 7th.
June 7th,
June
man.
7th. All right,
Yes, sir.
I might have to make it down there.
Come
All
on
right.
down, man.
Come on.
All right. Once again, it's the Flying Raye along with Graham Wilkinson. This is Rhythm and Soul Radio.
Thanks, man.
Thanks, man.
Thank you.